I think a great example in Canada is last year we helped 3 different banks deploy our real-time fraud technology, and collectively they each saved more than 50%. But as a result of that, Canada actually saw its fraud decline by 20% last year, and those customers had a big role, and that reversed years of year-over-year debit card fraud increases in that country.
Real-time capability is the capability to make a decision on a transaction in flight, prior to the authorization completing. So for example, when you're making a purchase at the point of sale, a real-time solution evaluates the probability of that transaction being fraudulent prior to an authorization decision being made. So a transaction can be prevented or stopped. Real-time, prevents fraud, but also serves as a significant customer service benefit. Customers that have real-time have the opportunity to not block a card. So even after a fraud transaction has occurred, they can leverage real-time solutions to allow customers to still buy groceries and pay for the taxi. And then have the confidence in the real-time solutions that if a high-risk purchase for jewelry or computers internationally are attempted, that transaction will still be stopped. Customers that don't operate in real-time, unfortunately, have to take a more proactive approach, and when they see the first fraud transaction, block the entire card, and that's what sometimes results in greater customer impact. Top 3 Canadian bank that's currently using PRM across 8 different channels, so they're using it against credit, debit, phone banking, online banking, branch transactions, and they're using it in a real-time fashion to decision transactions prior to them getting approved. Yeah, what it means is that you're actually making decisions for that customer based on all of their transactions across all the channels, as opposed to simply looking at their behavior across the debit card channel or credit card channel or online channel on it independently. So that's a step towards an enterprise fraud decision solution that allows you to not only recognize the behaviors of the customer across the channels, but then also identify anomalous transactions very effectively by realizing if a behavior is simply a movement across one channel or is a net new transaction. So for example, a customer pays their bills at the branch and then starts to use online banking. If you only looked at it from the perspective of online banking, it would look like net new high-risk behavior. But understanding that it's normal behavior that's transitioned from the branch to the online channel allows us to identify it as normal customer behavior and prevent false positives from being created.
Traditionally, wholesale payments have been processed on trust. The payments have arrived and it's know your customer, they've been authorised by the bank's mainframe, we've processed them through. But faster payments changed that. Faster payments was a scheme where banks wanted to do real-time suspicious activity checking on their payments. So not just sanctions checks, not just anti-money laundering checks, but does this payment look right? Does it feel right? And we're now seeing that more and more in any type of payment that we process through money transfer system. ACI are the only company that has that integrated solution between money transfer system and PRM, providing a real benefit to the customers.
A couple of banks, again in the UK, spring to mind. Firstly, Nationwide, they implemented an ACI system, PRM, for fraud detection some time ago, and they had an operation which didn't have out-of-hours cover. The staffing didn't work out of hours, which meant that a lot of fraud was taking place overnight and at weekends, which they weren't controlling. And over a 2-phased implementation, implemented PRM and were able to make dramatic reductions in their fraud. Started with near real-time fraud detection and then real-time, and they're able to quite cleverly track and change the customer statuses on their accounts and their cards, and it really makes a massive difference to their efficiency in terms of fraud detection and staffing of that operation.
Well, regarding fraud specifically, one issue that the French banks had to deal with is that most of their transactions in France were chip-based. As soon as the cardholder goes outside of the territory, the card is processed via the magstripe and therefore totally open to fraud exposure. So the French bank had to adapt and specifically endorse new technology enabling them to do authorization in a much more finer risk management and risk authorization process, which is why we've been able to sell a few instances of a proactive risk manager. Borders are now coming down, so therefore they're more exposed. As such, they have today the necessity to build up fraud products and to build up specifically also processes to adapt to those new threats and those new fraud tendencies. And PRM just helps them just do exactly that.
So we've had a number of banks in Canada implementing the real-time fraud technologies, and they've made just huge improvements in being able to reduce their fraud losses. And again, the way the fraudsters work is they go to the weakest path. So the people that don't have the right technologies in place, that's who the fraudsters exploit. So it's a lot of the case with fraud is being able to put preventive measures in place, and that pushes the fraudsters somewhere else.